Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
Hey, I'm Josh.
And this time we're changing up and we're going a little bit to Samurai era, Edo period, with the 13 Assassins, which is a DVD that I've had sitting in my collection for a long, long time. And I know that Josh has brought it up multiple times too, being like, you still haven't watched that? It's been sitting there forever. And I'm like, well, one of these days I'll get around to it. I had the good intentions. I bought it. I probably bought it at Big Lots because Big Lots, when that used to exist, had a very good martial arts section because I think a lot of those movies wouldn't get sold at other stores, so they'd end up at Big Lots, and you can find all sorts of great things there.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You know? But, yeah, we decided to finally sit down and watch this. We were like, dude, what samurai movie we should watch? I'm like, well, you brought this up so many times. I know I've had it and sit in my collection. Let's do it. And I was glad we did because this movie's almost like kind of very classically done, all about 1844, right. Edo period. You're getting to like the tail end of the samurais. And it's sort of this glorious period, I guess they would call it the peace era, you know, where things got a little bit more civilized from the 1600s to the 1800s. And I feel like this is where, especially just from being like, you know, watching movies and so on like that, there's a lot of this stuff that takes place in the 1800s, I think, because it's kind of it's Wild West days. That's why the Westerns always balance with it. And it's just that time period where there's just a lot of fun story elements that happen at this point. A lot of turning points in Japan as well, too.
Yeah, I know all my Japanese samurai history from the classic work, basically a documentary. It's Rurouni Kenshin. It's also so when I was like, so I was like, this is going into the Meiji era. So I'm like, oh, okay. Like, it kind of makes sense. Like, they keep talking about peace and, you know, jumping into the film, the big bad guy wants to go back to the Warring States era of Japan where it was just massive chaos. He doesn't like the peace. He's just, how would you describe that guy? The Shogun's brother.
He's almost this super sadistic, you know, but kind of sophisticated all at the same time guy. I mean, he does like gnarly shit and stuff. But there's a part like this is jumping way ahead, but like when they're doing the big battle at the end and everything like that, he's just walking through. He's like, oh, this is great. This brings back the good feelings. I think we need to keep more of this going so that we can get the warring days back. That makes people really feel alive and all that kind of stuff.
Where it's like, Hanabe, was this what the warring period was like? I like it. Let's bring it back.
I like how he asked like the oldest guy there. He's like, dude, that was like 250 years ago. That old.
Yeah, right. He's like, I don't fucking know.
Because I was kind of looking that up before we were doing this. I was like, well, what were those? You know the eras from the animes and samurai films and so on. But then I was like, well, what year was that really? And I think it was that warring era was, I believe it was. Let's see. I pulled it up here, but it's kind of like 1600s to like 1400s. I want to say is when that section happened, or 1467 to 1603. So it was like a 150-year period of like when those battles were going on. You know.
Well, they had a ton of different warring periods, though.
Yeah, but that's the one I think he's referring to. Is that's that big era where they had like all the state battles and everything like that, where each like section of Japan was kind of going after there and whatnot. And that's also when the Spanish introduced guns to them. And they did the Japanese thing of reverse engineering those guns and then mass producing them.
Right. Yeah, I have no idea at all about Japanese history. I am super ignorant. But I can tell you this. I fucking love it. I love a good samurai flick.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, who doesn't like a good old samurai flick? And the weird thing about them, too, is like, you know, you can watch like a samurai tale, and it's hard to tell what the year is. You know what I mean? It's not like, you know, you watch like, in a sense, if you watch a movie in the 1800s in the Americas, it's like, you're pretty sure you could kind of guesstimate when that is just based on it. It's like, oh, it's Western. It's probably 1840 to 1890, somewhere in that ballpark. You know what I mean? You know, if it looks kind of more Revolutionary War era, well, we know it's about the early 1800s, maybe War of 1812 section, somewhere around there, you know, but like, you watch the samurai one, it's like, this could be 1850, this could be 1605, you know what I mean? Like, it kind of doesn't have a radical change. That's the weirdest thing about Japan. I think that's because it's an isolated island, is that it looks like the same for like almost like at least 1,000+ years, you know? And then all of a
Right.
sudden, all this tech, somebody finally makes it in from like the tsunami. Well, I think it's the Americans are kind of the first ones where like they actually trust a little bit more in a weird way. They trust
No,
them.
they forced their way in. I know that part.
Yeah, well, they definitely
I
forced
can't-
their way in, but like, I know it's like the Mongols, they kept out, they made sure that they stayed away and everything like that. You know, the Chinese, they didn't want to have come in either too much. You know, the Spanish did land there, but they kind of just got them out as quick as possible. And then it wasn't until
Right.
I think the U.S. lands there in like the 1800s, but then they start to convert everything, and that's what turns in the Meiji era or whatever, is that the U.S. starts to bring in, you know, like the imperialism and so on.
They showed up with gunships and they're like, "You will fucking open this port."
Yeah, we need this here. You know, we're going to trade with you whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So sadly, they started to cooperate, and that's where you get to like Last Samurai type stuff, where like you go, is it better that things change, or is it best that you know they stayed the same? You know, you question that kind of stuff. You know, and
That's also why Dan Carlin's, yeah, his podcast series Supernova in the East,
great one.
it touches on that. How they basically, the Japanese go into like high gear because they're like, uh-oh, all these dudes are showing up with guns and like military tactics.
Well, that's the thing. It's like that's what happens is they go, oh shit, we have to literally evolve. And of course, everybody's like, oh, we should keep the samurai traditions. And be like, dude, that ain't gonna work. Like you've not seen what we have just seen on these like gunships and so on. And then it's like by the time like Japan gets all kind of prepared and everything, they're like, you know what? It's time to be an industrial nation and whatnot. We're gonna be imperials and everything like that. Let's do some conquering. And everybody else is like, whoa. We're kind of done with that now. You know, we've been doing that for the last 400 years. It was great. It was great. It was fun. But it's not kosher anymore. You know what I mean? It's not PC
Right.
to go around and just take these countries for our needs and hang out and give them a slap a Bible in their hand.
Right.
And then Japan's like,
And-
dude, but we want to get in on this. Like, we mean you guys had all this fun without us? Well, yeah, you landlocked yourselves off.
Right. You snooze, you lose, Japan.
Yeah, so they try to make up for it in like a 30-year period almost until England and America had to come kick them back out of those those countries real quick.
Dude, what's super not PC is the main bad guy in this film.
No, this dude is fucked up. That's like the thing, because this movie's like a slow burn one where like, in a sense, like,
until it starts popping off, until the action really starts. But you say slow burn, but there's enough atrocities. And like, I remember when I first told you about this movie and it was like, dude, you need to watch this. I made a point not to talk about any of the buildup.
Yeah.
I just remember telling you it was brutal. Like it was extremely brutal.
Well, it's like this dude, it's like, I want to say one of the first like kind of things that happens is there's this part where there's one of the handmaidens or whatever of like his area and whatnot. He's just like, well, I'm just gonna have my way with her. I don't give a flying fuck and whatnot. And then like her husband, who literally works at the same place, he's like, hey, well, where's my wife at? He's like, oh yeah, by the way, don't worry about it. And he's like, oh, what are you doing? You know, like that and stuff like that. And I think the lady goes to take her life, but the dude, as he's like trying to talk to her, the guy comes up and just stabs in the back and says, forget about it, and just starts smacking the blade on his neck
Right.
3 or 4 times until it finally chops off.
Yeah, he was traveling, and it was the man that he hacked up. It was his house, and they were letting him stay in there. And like
That's what it was, yeah.
yeah, Hanabi or whatever his name is. I'm pretty sure it's Hanabi. We're gonna get all these names wrong and not remember any of them. Hanabi could be the main good guy who like rallies the troops to kill this guy. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
he had like a Digimon name. I hate to say it was like Sizamon.
Oh yeah, it is Sizamon or something like that. So I think Hanabi was the protector of the shogun's brother, who essentially the plot is the old shogun died. And so the brother's going to become the new shogun, his older brother, and he's going to become like on the shogun's council. So he's going to have like massive power. And he's a sadistic cunt. So he's traveling around Japan. Homeboy lets him stay in his house. He tries to rape his wife, and then I guess he kills both of them. right?
Well, I think he's successful in it too. I think he does. It doesn't show that part, but like,
well, no one can stop him.
No,
he's untouchable.
Yeah, and he does whatever he wants. It's like he has no problem whatsoever. So yeah, he just brutally murders people, just whatever. That's not a big deal, and so on like that. And word sort of has gotten out, like, dude, we could not let this dude get into power. Like, the second that he gets full control, it's going to go into pure chaos. There's going to be wars going to break out everywhere and so on like that. And they have this other part, too, in there, and it's just a moment later where they're like, just to prove how bad this guy is, they're like, yo, look what he did to this lady and whatnot. And they, like, fucking pull this, like, you know, sheet off of her and whatnot. And he's literally shows this lady that's, like, got all her limbs fucking chopped off and whatnot, so she can't do anything. He's cut her tongue out and everything like that and just used her like a fuck doll that she can't escape or anything.
Basically.
Like yeah,
basically.
And it's so bad at this point because she has her tongue cut out. They actually don't even mention that at first. And then they're like, oh, here, you got to write down, you know, whatever the information. So she literally has to take this, you know, not pen, but like a brush, put it in her mouth and write it out that way because she can't speak. And this is the only form of grip she has left. So it's just like, it's like, and that seems to be like, yep, we all agree this guy needs to go. Okay, perfect. We let's form this magnificent, you know, 13.
In that scene, though, I can't help but I laugh every single time where she finishes writing and she's like, "Aah!" And our Digimon friend, Saizamon, is like, he's like, this is horrible. And then she just like falls over, right? He just like collapses.
And then they run over again. It's like that thing. It's like, oh, I guess somebody should have been there to hold her up. She doesn't have any limbs.
Yeah, right. She just falls. She's also naked the whole time. We left that part out.
Yeah, which is like one of those ones I kind of thought, but like, there's probably no real reason for her to be naked other than the fact to be like, see, this is pretty fucked up. Like that.
Yeah, take it all in.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? If she was wearing something, you wouldn't get the full experience of this, of like how messed up this is. We really got to sell why we got to kill this dude now. Let's be honest.
Right. Right. And then what was the last thing he did? He like murdered a whole family, just shooting arrows into them while they're kneeling.
Oh,
and his guards are like watching them.
It's just like he's just like shooting them just like nonchalantly and whatnot, and then like some of them are like sitting there like twitching and like partially alive and stuff, and then there's just like a little like Roroni down there who's just like fucking like shooting this like 6-year-old kid. Just what I do. It's fucking Tuesday. What do you want?
Right, mocking his samurai the whole time, like you guys just serve and die. You're worthless.
This guy's like taking into so much power here and whatnot, and it's like if you thought King John was bad in Robin Hood times, you ain't seen nothing compared to this guy.
Right. He makes for like Game of Thrones fans, he makes Joffrey look like a saint.
Oh, really?
Or reasonable, more reasonable than anybody else, because he fucking murders everybody.
Yeah, this guy's literally almost like 1970s villain, and I say that because like it seems like villains in like 1970s movies will have like no rhyme or reason to like why they do stuff.
Right.
Like, nowadays they always have to do that thing where they're like, well, is he really a villain? He's got multiple.
There's a reason for his villainy.
Yeah, which to me sometimes takes away sort of like a scariness. Because if you have a villain that like, no, he has no redeeming qualities, I feel it makes him feel more monster-like and more like, oh God, you literally cannot trust this kind of.
Oh, 100%.
And the second you give him like a reason, be like, I kind of get why he did. I mean, it's not the right thing to do, but it made sense. That takes away a lot because then you're like, oh, yeah. If you did the thing where you're like, well, yeah, but that family was being an ass to him, you'd be like, well, okay, you probably shouldn't have shot him, but they weren't being too neighborly either. So, there's those kind of things there. But this one's like, no, this guy's fucked up, And the interesting thing, too, is this movie's a remake, actually. I think there's a 63 movie or something like that.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting to know how fucked up the guy was in that one, out of curiosity.
Right.
They probably do a little bit more off-screen stuff, but you never know. It's, because Japanese movies weren't like American movies where they were kind of like censored in the early days. They're like Italian movies who are like, censorship? What the fuck are you talking about? We just went through World War II.
Right. Well, that's also why those early like 60s and 50s samurai movies are so good.
It's so violent.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it. Coming up at some point in a podcast, we're going to do Samurai, the Musashi movies.
Yeah, the trilogy.
And pretty much the whole reason why we did 13 Assassins is because we had to, we got to source Samurai 1 through 3 and watch all of them.
Yeah, it's like the thing. What we do is like, do we get the HBO? Do we get the Criterion Collection? The Criterion Collection looks kind of cool. It's not cheap because it's Criterion, but it looks cool. You get some special features and all that stuff. So there's that kind of toss up going around. But I know those are ones I've always wanted to watch. I've literally had them on like my list for a long time and just never got around to them. But
they're so good. And, dude, that's what I love about Japanese filmmaking too. Just like any Japanese movie in general, they have their own stylistic choices that they make. You know what I mean? Like it's their own thing completely. Not just because it's samurai, but like the way they shoot it, the way they build the drama, the tension, the characters that they throw in, and the dynamics, which is what's phenomenal about 13 Assassins. Unfortunately, you don't really get to connect with all 13. There's only like four, maybe 5 characters that you're like, I give a shit about those ones. The other guys are just there.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that like that's kind of the only downfall is like, it's even kind of like we mentioned this about like Seven Samurai / Magnificent Seven. It's like you remember 4 of them really well, and then the other 3 are like, well, they have moments and so on like that, but you kind of almost forget like they almost run together even.
Pretty much. I mean, I couldn't remember who any of them were, and this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've seen this movie. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of have your core members. Well, it's also at this time period too. I hate to sort of say it, but like 90% of the guys all have like that classic samurai haircut where they shave the front.
They all look alike, yeah.
Yeah, there's the Ronin dude. He stands out because he has his hair normally grown, and then there's like the bum guy that they sort of find like out in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Who becomes the hillbilly? Because they start off as like we're like a magnificent 12 here and so on like that, and then all of a sudden they find this guy out in the middle of the woods trapped. He's like, hey, you give me some food, I'll fucking guide you out of here. And then he turns out to be actually more of a badass than most of the other guys, and he just has all these odd skills.
100%. He's like, I think probably like the most impressive fighter is probably the Ronin guy. Maybe him or the other old guy, our Digimon, Suzimon, or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
His old friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, his old buddy was fucking amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could tell him apart because he had like the bluish Komodo, I think.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's like there's some color schemes and so on like that kind of tell you. And then there's the other guys they kind of have joined this like group is there's like 2 guys. They're like the demolition guys that like right. They're like go learn how to blow shit up real quick.
They did a stint going into the future and working with Brad Pitt and whatnot in Ocean's 13, robbed a bank as demolition experts.
Yeah, exactly. So you got some guys with some other skills, but beyond that, that's kind of like the thing they really stand out for. It's just your core guys. As I said, nothing too much different than Seven Samurai and even Magnificent Seven. And the first hour of this movie is kind of that build up. You see all the atrocities. You see them kind of going like, "Hey, we got to do something about this. We got to build this team up and everything like that." Other things I just kind of want to mention too is the way that this movie's kind of shot is interesting too. It feels like it's one of those movies that uses all like natural lighting and everything like that. Like you can totally tell that like trying to do that thing where like let's light this all with actual candles and make it look like it's 1844 and all that stuff. Where in a sense it makes the picture quality actually look not nearly as good if it's at nighttime, but it makes it feel like, well, that's probably what it would look like if you were hanging out in the dojo talking to each other, about what you're planning on doing and whatnot.
Yeah, when you're having a secret conspiracy, it kind of makes it more of an intimate scene. I can't remember the dude's name. I think it's like Takea or something like that, like the Takea clan. I don't know. Yeah. Some sort of clan. But he's related to the first couple that was killed in the beginning of the film. So he has a bone to pick against the Shogun's brother. And they basically have to go and convince him, basically to be like, yo, bro, we need you to make sure that he could only go through this town. Oh, by the way, you're going to have to probably kill yourself after this.
You're
committing treason right now.
Well, and even speaking of killing yourselves, this movie literally opens up with a dude committing seppuku like right off the bat.
Right.
You know, it's like that's the start of the movie. The movie turns on. There's a dude right there getting prepared, takes his shirt down, grabs a little sword and everything like that, and just stabs himself, cuts up, cuts down, just sits there in agony for a moment, and just keels over and bleeds out. And it's like almost I don't know. I can't remember if credits roll right after that, but that's what it sort of feels like. And I think
that's
the dude
one of
you're
the
talking about. Is that the dude who like has to kill himself
on the bridge?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think is so crazy? So, once again, I don't know shit about Japanese history or culture really at all. But what is
Samurai Champloo?
Yeah, right. I've watched Afro Samurai, so I'm a little bit of an expert.
I know Samuel L. Jackson was a big part of it.
Right. I know he's an expert, so I trust him. But what is it that makes it such a compelling plot point that to get things done, basically a homeboy just killing themselves in the most brutal way is like, okay, you know what? We got to act. It's fucking serious out here. This dude needs to die. Old Susie Bon over there just cut his belly open and bled out on the steps of like the shogunate. So, we got to act. We got to get things going here.
Yeah.
I'm convinced now.
And that ritual sacrifice. Well, that's the thing that was like, to kill yourself in that way was the most honorable way of like, relieving yourself of anything, no matter what. But in the most painful, or there's the other one too, where like you stab yourself like that, and then you have another dude slice your head off once you're like partially in agony.
Right.
Which
this is brutal.
Which I know that's like the one like when like like in World War II when the Americans show up and they see that on the fucking beach, they're like, Jesus Christ! Like,
right.
Did not expect to see that right off the bat. You're like,
dude,
that's a normal thing in Japan.
That's like the picture that you can find on the internet where it's like a World War II Australian soldier blindfolded about to get his head cut off, and they snap the photo right when the sword's about to meet the head.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that one before.
Fuck, dude. Crazy.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? And for a lot of people, that was a real bizarre thing because I don't think the idea of beheading things has been around for a lot of those other countries for a long while.
Right. Right.
And beheading, like even the last time that people saw it, like, well, you had to have a guillotine and everything. It was a complicated matter. Where this one, right. Like, dude, just swinging a sword is all they need.
Yeah, you're just taking dudes out.
It's like whatever you have to do. You soak it in something to make it cut through really easily.
I have no idea.
I can't remember. I remember like it might have been that Dan Carlin one.
You went down a beheading rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's like one of those.
How does one behead people with samurai sword? Cool.
And make it easy, so you don't have to be like the guy in the beginning who has to slice like 3 or 4 times just to make it work.
Yeah, I'll have to tell your woman if she ever comes home and she just sees you sharpening a samurai sword, be like, you need to take that from him.
Yeah, it's soaking it in whatever you need to make it cut through.
Something's going on. He needs to talk to someone.
And that one dude didn't get it soaked, so he had to get his head just like hacked on for the first like couple times just to have it go.
That's so brutal. And he's just like, what does he say? He's like, monkey heads are so tough.
Yeah,
just drops the sword and leaves.
Yeah, he's got to like add insult to injury too, right there and whatnot.
I know, dude. He makes such a good, like, compelling reason to just, go murder him.
Yeah, literally 100%.
And kill a fuck ton of people. So, essentially, they hatch a plan. They go around, they build their team up. That part doesn't take long at all. I think the last person they recruit, other than the hillbilly, is the Digimon's nephew, who's like a drunk / gambling addict.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's like the worst samurai ever. He also one of the easiest ones to identify when all the action's taking place because he looks normal with a ponytail.
Yeah, exactly. The haircut will make a difference on these characters.
Right. But dude, okay. So they gather all their people and they're trying to figure out where they're going to ambush these fools at. And they come across a sleepy little mountain town. And they're like, okay, yeah, we're going to go ahead. We're going to make sure that we can trap them, isolate them so that we can take them on in small skirmishes and explode as many people as we can. So they start getting to work. They have the explosive experts doing their thing, making all kinds of fun Japanese IEDs. You know, just some poor person's house. They're like, we're going to rig this with explosives. You don't have a fucking home anymore.
Yeah, exactly. I know you moved out here to get away from stuff, but we're bringing the war to you.
The war's coming to your doorstep.
Yeah, so they pretty much barricade this, and they get this thing all kind of set up because literally our villain dude, he's going to come in with kind of like a partial army. I can't remember if it's like 300 soldiers or something like that, 240, something that's a lot for 13 guys.
It was supposed to be small. I think like the original plan was like his original detachment was like 75 people or something like that. It was like a small number, and then they catch wind of this plot taking place, and I want to say Hanabi. I'm pretty sure that's the protector guy's name. Hanabi knows the Digimon, right? The Digimon and Hanabi train together at the same dojo, cross swords all the time. He knows how good of a warrior Suzumon or Soimon actually is. Knows how crafty he is and like how determined he is to get whatever mission that he has for him, get it completed. So what does he say? He says something like, you know, if we go and we get reinforcements, it'll bring shame. And this is like, I guess maybe for like a Japanese audience, or at least in the context of the time, it kind of explains that there are no redeeming qualities for this evil Shogun's brother ruler type, because he's like, do the foolish thing. I don't care about my reputation. Get all the troops. And that's how like they swell up to like, I think it was like 200 or 300 people.
Yeah, I think it might be about 200. Maybe they like double. He probably tripled it, if anything. You know, from 70 to 240 or something like that. And it kind of has that thing. Speaking of even just 300, it's kind of like the 300 movie, almost in a sense, where it's like, here's a small group of soldiers that are going to have to hold off an entire giant army. 3 to 4 times their size. And they're going to hold
the best of the best.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the game plan here. And the thing is about this movie is like, okay, like the first hour is just like the atrocities, building the team. There's like the, not like action, but there's, the parts where you just see some violence and so on like that and so on, just to keep you going. But really what this is doing is it's doing like almost like an old school thing where it's like, it's really building up to lead to like a 45-minute like action scene, and it's funny because when I was watching this movie, I watched it a couple parts like I normally do, and I think I literally paused it like, okay, I'll go to bed right here, like literally right where that action scene starts off. So like the next time I turned it on, it was just all samurai action.
You had it basically right when was it? They're all gathered together and they're trying to determine and make the Digimon decide if they're going to abandon their position of ambush and go pursue this like 270-man army and just try their luck.
Yeah, exactly.
You got it right at that spot.
Pretty much about there, because like no action had happened right yet, and just like literally just like a couple minutes later, boom, here it comes,
Right.
And
the action that does happen though, it's very old school, like samurai, like when the Ronin guy, the Digimon's apprentice, whacks those guys out on the street. Just
that's right.
Rapid fashion.
Yep, the real quick attacks and so on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's those parts there and so on like that, and then we sort of mentioned that they run across the hillbilly dude out in the middle of the woods that they end up seeing.
Right.
And I love how this guy's just like, yeah, I'll just join you guys, whatever. She's like, I don't got a problem. He's like, I'll fight some samurais, whatever.
I hate samurais.
Yeah,
samurais are dumb. It's entertaining how he fights the entire time with rocks and sticks, though, and he's just killing samurai after samurai.
Yeah, I just picture there's these guys that they've trained their entire life and everything like that, and this guy comes by and clobbers them over the head with a branch.
Right.
And he takes out like a crap ton of them. I mean, he starts swinging things around almost like, made up nunchucks and whatnot, too.
Right. Dodging samurai swords like it's nothing.
Yeah, he's just got all these weird, bizarre skills.
Right. Hitting dudes with like slingshots with rocks that are like literally like the size of a softball.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
just flinging at those things.
Yeah, this guy's just crazy, and it's almost like it sounds weird. This guy's almost like the most anime character in this movie. Like he almost
Oh yeah,
feels slightly
100%.
out of place, but like it's not a bad thing. But like compared to, because this movie kind of has that like old timey, like, you know, samurai, it's serious, all this kind of stuff like this, and then you have this guy, and he's literally walking around almost like an anime character, like chewing at the same time and whatnot.
Right. Dude, I love so when basically they goad the army, the small army to come into the town. They let them all enter and then they spring the ambush, basically like walls of sticks. Somehow, I want to know how they would even have been able to do this because it's very not realistic. Yeah, just giant, massive walls close in and separate all the guys, right? And then they just start setting off IEDs everywhere. Buildings blow up. Dudes are just getting schwacked in the street as bombs are just exploding all over them. And I think they killed like 100 people just in like a couple seconds.
Yeah, because they take out like half the army right off the bat with all those explosions and so on. Like,
right. And then like flaming water buffalo.
oh
Like,
yeah, that worked too.
yeah.
So yeah, there's like the stampede going, and just the top of it. A stampede's already one thing running at you, but what if you light them on fire?
Right.
You're gonna really set Pete
No
off with that one.
defend. No to defend.
Yeah, you know, so some dudes are literally getting impaled by a buffalo coming at you, and it's on fire to top it off.
Right. And then, dude, I love the part where all the samurai are standing around them and the hillbilly are standing around them like on the raised walls. And I think Soimon holds up, our poor lady with no arms and legs or a tongue. And it's her message, which says like total massacre or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just start shooting arrows into fucking dudes till they run out of arrows completely. Just, trying to kill the Lord, trying to kill basically anybody they can and exhaust all their arrows.
Yeah, because they're thinning the herd more and more, just to get it down to a reasonable number to fight off, once they have.
It is not reasonable, though.
No, because even still, it's like they probably have to fight 50 guys with swords, if not more.
Right.
And they're taking on all kinds, and they're taking guys out left and right, but it starts to get dicey as it keeps going.
That part is so sick, though, dude, because it's like they shoot all their arrows up. A couple guys have like some arrows left, and Soimon is like, what does he say? He's like, enough of these tricks. they all take off their shit and like pull out their samurai swords.
Yeah, exactly.
Just jump down into the middle of like the army.
Yep, it's just like they're like we're just gonna fight it, old school in a sense, And I was actually kind of doing like some research because I was looking up, I was trying to go like, okay, well, when were like guns and all that stuff brought in Japan and whatnot? And then I heard that like, okay, so the Spanish brought them in the 1500s or something like that. It became a big deal. They use it for a bunch of like, big old timey wars and whatnot, where they, turn the tides that way. But for some reason,
Nobunaga used gunpowder and guns.
Yeah. But strange enough, it seems like in the Edo period, like guns, like they didn't totally go away, but they were just kind of like put to the side almost more than anything else. Because I kind of wanted that, because you didn't see a ton of guns. I don't think you saw any guns in this movie. So,
well, they're only so effective because they're basically like not even
at this time period. Because
are they even muskets? They're like matchlock to where you have to light the fuse. The fuse falls onto a flash pan, and then you have like a second delay, and then the round goes off.
Yeah, 18. Well, who knows? Because it depends how far behind they are at this point.
They're super far behind. I mean, they didn't look good. They didn't look like good guns.
No, because I always picture like like you didn't get yourself like a revolver or anything like that till like the late 1800s in Japan, just because you befriended some cowboy.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, at the very least, you would have like a one-shot musket that would do you. Probably, you're better off with a bow and arrow, realistically. Let's be honest. You could probably fire.
Maybe they were also like, that's not as honorable. We got to have more swords and arrows than guns. I have no idea. I don't know shit about Japan, but I like the action.
Yeah, well, that makes sense because I think in the Edo time, which is considered the time of peace, because this movie really, shows what peace is like.
Yeah, right.
That I think that was it. I think they kind of had that like old timey, like, oh no, kind of the same way, because it sounds weird, but the 1800s is like that even in Europe, because in Europe they got to that weird point where they're like, you know what, we found the way to make war seem a little bit more reasonable. It's kind of like a giant chess game. It's like, well, that doesn't sound very reasonable. You're like, well, we figured out how to make it a little bit more civilized and so on like that. With that literally like Napoleon era type stuff. So I feel like Japan's kind of in that same ballpark too, where
even the American Civil War.
Yeah, it's before the Americans are kind of the first ones that sort of have proto-industrial revolution stuff kind of show up, because even
they still did that chivalrous thing to where they'd be like, the losing general would hand over his side sword.
Yeah,
and be like, oh, you defeated me, you fought well.
Yeah, exactly. Because you have that, because it's like that stuff all seems to go away once you get to like that very late 1800s, and then
once there's machine guns,
giant explosions, gas, all that stuff goes out the window. Knives that got 3 different directions on them. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, all that stuff. So we're still at that like partially, whatever you could kind of call partially civilized era, and I think that's the thing of the sword, is like that's the honorable way to go down and whatnot. So all these dudes are having this badass, battle. It's like our 13 dudes are taking on probably at this point maybe give or take 50 dudes. They've definitely whittled it down, but they still got a lot to take on here. And over the course of this battle, we start losing some of our members too. Not all the guys are starting to make it out here, And
all the no-name guys drop first.
Yes, all those guys that are like 5 and up are like taken out. They're just not making it. Somehow, some way, you gotta explain this one to me. Okay, so we have our hillbilly guy, number 13, and he literally is taunting. He's got the anime thing. He's swinging the sword over his back like he's like in Berserk or something.
He's flicking his nose.
Flicking his nose. He's got this big old stick that he's carrying this stick like he's a 13-year-old kid hanging out at school, being like, dude, check out like my Final Fantasy sword right here. I'm Dante right now from Devil May Cry.
Right.
And so he's just taunting these guys like, samurai, they're fucking shit. Like, doesn't matter. Like, you guys think you're so special. What's so special about being a samurai? And then doesn't he get shot right in the neck?
Yeah.
No, he gets a little sword thrown at him by the main villain dude. Just like chucks it.
Right.
And he gets stabbed in the neck. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess he's dead.
And then slashed across his belly.
Yeah. And then it's like the weirdest thing is like, doesn't he show up at the very end? And he's like,
he does,
bro. And I was like, what the hell happened there?
Yeah, I don't. I almost feel like I need to go back and look up. Be like, what was the meaning of that?
Yeah, dude, it's like he had this like. I mean, dude, like literally, you get hit with the short sword, right? And I mean, like, okay, maybe if it went by the side of him and scratched him, that's one thing. But it's literally sticking in him and it's poking out the other side.
Right. I guess it just missed all the parts that would kill a hillbilly.
I guess.
He rubbed some dirt in it.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Because he gets back up, he's like, there's like a mark there, and that's about it. Like he healed. It's been like 5 minutes.
He gets stabbed in the throat. He gets his belly cut open, and then at the end, he just goes like he's running around, then like jumping over people and like hopping off shit, just like, hey guys.
Yeah, I couldn't figure that for a second there. I'm like, is that the same guy? Nobody else looks like that guy. How could it not be? It's like. Right. I have no idea how this dude survives this, but somehow, some way, he can survive like a fatal blow or two.
Dude, the Ronin's fight where he gets a whole like slew, probably like 20 dudes, all in like one combined space, and he had lined it all with samurai swords just sticking out of like. It's the most anime fight besides the hillbilly guy.
Yeah,
but that's like the most. That's the most anime fight scene in that whole movie. There's swords sticking out everywhere. So he's just basically running around. If he has to huck a sword into a dude, he does it. If he has to block one sword with one hand, he'll grab another sword out of some place out of the environment, kill the guy with it. Yeah. If it gets stuck, he just leaves it, grabs another sword. Like, that fight scene was so dope.
Kicks the dude over, the sword's still sticking in him, he grabs another one, just keeps going. Yeah, it's just like badass,
That was one of the coolest scenes of that whole film.
Yeah, just so cool. And then they start with it gets down to just a couple guys left. Like the hillbilly guy, well, I think by this point he's, hit in the neck, but he survives. Don't question it. You get our Ronin dude, you get Shizamon or whatever, you get about one or two other guys kind of make.
Blue kimono guy.
Yes, he still makes it.
The gambling addict.
Yeah. So there's just like about a few, maybe 4 guys or so left, and then and the bad guys army, I guess there's maybe about like 8 or so, or 6 or 8. They're starting to get dwindled down too.
Right.
And you get to the point where it's almost like Shizamon or whatever needs to battle the main right-hand man of our, what is our antagonist? Lord Naratsuga. That dude.
What's his protector's name? Is it Hanabi?
Somebody's Hanabi. We don't know who, but somebody's got to be. So they get in this kind of cool, just one-on-one fight, and this is where
dude, that fight's so cool.
The Lord dude keeps like spouting all these like like this almost like this like war propaganda stuff, like he's out of Metal Gear Solid or something. And like the glory of battle and what it makes you a man. This is how it's supposed to be, and how the Lord stands above his peasants, the samurai that work for him. And everybody's like,
the samurai needs something to die for.
Yeah, and everybody's like, oh, I like being a samurai. I like swinging a sword and all, but I don't know about this like. Being on my knees on the ground type of shit.
Dude, speaking of that, one of the other parts that make me laugh a lot, and this is backtracking, the PTSD'd out samurai who's like been burnt up and blown up, and he's just laughing, walking by, swinging the sword at his friends, and they fucking kill him.
Yeah, I forgot about that part, but yeah. Oh man, yeah, no, that guy, yeah. It's lit on fire, doesn't care. Oh, jeez. But yeah, we get to this ending battle, and yeah, it's pretty glorious, and everything's kind of destroyed around him, and it's like it's at that close point where it's like the tide could go any direction or whatnot like that. But Shizamon or whatever he defeats him. And then he goes on this one-on-one conversation with the Lord dude or whatever, and
the way he kills him though is dope.
Yes, that's
so they're facing off. They have like a deep history, and they're crossing swords. To me, it almost seems like Shizamon or our Digimon friend is going to be on the losing end, right? He's been, he's tore up. He's been fighting for however long. It's a 40-minute long scene, so he's been fighting with a sword against overwhelming odds. And he has that whole part with Hanabi where he's like, Hanabi's like, oh, how I've waited to cross swords with you again. And then the Digimon's like, in the dojo, we were equals. And he kicks mud in his face, like right at that moment, blinds Hanabi, like knocks him down to the ground. He's like, but this is war, bitch. Cuts his head off.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, he's like, Hanabi, I'll see you in hell.
Yeah, just chops it off right there, and it goes boop boop. I think that's the one where it rolls into like the house, because it almost looks like it's gonna like do a hole in one, because there's like there's like a square that I was like, is that gonna roll in there? Like, oh, it doesn't.
It rolls to the Lord, and the Lord kicks his head.
Oh, that's right. Never mind, because I was thinking of another guy gets it. There's a lot of people get their head chopped.
I think the Lord gets his head chopped off, and it rolls towards the house.
Yeah, and it almost looks like it's gonna be a hole in one.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right. And he kicks the head. He's like, how do you kick him? He's like, just another samurai or whatever like that. Doesn't mean anything to me.
He's like, I don't fucking care. He says you could kick my head if you want to. Yeah,
exactly. Just taunting him and everything like that. He's just talking smack and everything there. And of course, Shizamon or whatever goes up. He starts close talking to him, which I'm like, dude, that's not gonna work out. Don't close talk this guy. He's gonna pull something sneaky on you. You just know it, But maybe this is part of his game plan, anyways, because it does sort of work out, even if it is kind of one of those sacrifice moments.
Well, Shizamon basically wanted to die.
Yeah, he wanted to die, and he knew that he could take him out in the process, because he literally gets stabbed right there and so on like that. But it leaves him open to literally, stab the Lord dude or whatever and finish him off.
Right.
And he just, talking all kinds of mad, tough talk and so on like that. The second he gets stabbed and the sword pulls out and he's bleeding out on the ground, he's crying and spinning around and twitching and like, it fucking hurts.
Crawling through the mud. Like, he gets so fucking muddy.
Yeah.
Like, that scene makes me laugh so hard, because I could just imagine, like, like you're some, this is like more of like an American thing, but like you're some union film crew worker, and you're like filming, right? And you're like, okay, well, how's this actor gonna play this scene? He's just like flopping back and forth in the mud, crying and laughing. It hurts. This is pain. Ooh.
So he's just bitching out right here and whatnot, like with all this, he thought he was such a tough guy until he actually finally gets hit, and then yeah, you get his head fucking sliced off and whatnot.
Well, he kind of dies like a gangster though, in the sense that like, he's realizes he's dying. He's like, am I dying? He like rolls over and he's like leaning up against like a house or a shed or something. I don't know what he's leaning up against, but he says something like
still standing.
Yeah, he tells like Soymon or whatever his name is, like, thank you. And Soymon's just kind of like, what were you thinking before? It's like, this is the most exciting day of my life. I had so much fun.
Yeah, he's just he's really a guy who's into the most high stakes thrills, if you really think about it. Like, that's really what he is for.
Right. It's what you said. He's like that perfect, just absolute chaos type character.
Exactly. I think the interesting thing is I think the story's all kind of based on a true event. So
right.
It makes you wonder.
At least that's what they claim.
That's what they claim. They claim anything, but be interesting if that is kind of the case here. Is that maybe that is the way it kind of goes, and there was somebody who was really messed up and so on like that. It wouldn't be out of the question back in the ye olden days.
Right. Well, even today.
Yeah, even today,
that's not that weird.
Yeah, it's not that weird. You know what I mean? So it's not.
Some people are fucking crazy.
So I could totally see that. Just having this guy who just has this like yearning and lust for like just like all extreme pleasures, and battle would be the ultimate one. Just
I do.
Dude, experience that.
I do love that element though, when you have a bad guy who's just fucking out of their mind, just completely batshit crazy, or just ruthlessly evil just because, like like a No Country for Old Men. Fuck, what's that movie? It has Gerard Butler in it, and the female cop, she like uses like a revolver, like a old Western pistol. Darn it, this is gonna piss me off. I'll have to find it. It's gonna be after this podcast. I don't have a computer to look it up.
Oh no.
But it's a Gerard Butler flick where basically Frank Grillo's character stole money from the mob or stole secrets from the mob. So Gerard Butler, basically a bunch of hitmen are coming to go kill Frank Grillo. And there's one of the psychopathic, hitmen come to kill him. And whoever plays that guy, it's like the perfect, true chaos, devil may care, no remorse, just absolute evil type enemies. Oh, it's so good. I wish I could remember the film's name. It's gonna piss me off.
Interesting. But I personally like that kind of villain in movies where they're just like, yeah, they have no redeeming qualities and so on like that. They're just pure like crazy people and so on like that, and just these brutalizers and whatnot. And that even still makes them. They can still be interesting, and they can still have like whatever qualities they do got going. But I think it makes for like a much more like, oh shit, we got to take this guy down, because if this guy gets in the power, that is it, And then yeah, so they kind of win, and it's like by this point, for some reason, there's 3 or 4 guys left here, including somehow, some way, our hillbilly guy that miraculously survives, recovers, and heals from a sword in the throat.
Well, 2 dudes, because Soymon fucking dies.
Well, Soymon dies, so I guess it's just
he bleeds out.
Does the Roman guy
No, he's dead too.
That's right. He does. He goes down epically too. It's it's our dude of the blue kimono.
The gambling addict. The gambling addict is the blue kimono guy dies. The Ronin dies, basically living out what he was saying while he was like, I guess, training up the other 12 guys, or working with the other 12, where he's like, if your sword breaks, use your fists. If you're on the ground, find a rock, bash their head in. Yeah. Like, do everything you can, make the enemy pay until you're dead.
Yeah.
And he basically goes out that way. He fucking smashes dudes' heads in with a rock till he finally dies.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Okay, yeah, so he does go down. Yeah, I guess that just leaves us with two characters at the end then. Maybe that's
Yeah, everybody dies except for the nephew and the hillbilly. Somehow, I think the hillbilly's dead. I mean, come on. Like, he just ran off, and then he bleeds out and he dies. That's what I like to think.
Yeah, but you see his neck, and it looks like it's already healed. It's like Wolverine powers or some shit.
Right, it doesn't make any sense, right? So it makes me wonder, like, what is the deal there? Like, is that something like I don't even know. That I would say of all the critiques I have, it's that part.
I just want to know, like, I'll suspend my disbelief, but just give me a little bit to work with here.
No bandage, no guts hanging out.
No, yeah, so whatever. Somehow, some way he survives and whatnot. And then I almost want to say this movie kind of does like classic movie style where it's like, battle's over. Pretty much we cut to a little bit of text to explain what happens. And it says like, in 18 years from now or whatever, the Edo period ends and we go in the Meiji era. And that's when shit kind of changes, So enjoy this.
And everybody lived happily ever after. Until World War II.
Yeah, until these bombs just somehow some way were dropped on by a fish and whale or whatever.
Right. Until the Enola Gay caused a second sun to appear in Hiroshima.
Yeah, so
dude, that makes me think. This is so fucked up, but do you remember when you might not have been. It might have been before you came over to Somerville, but somebody from like Adam Gold's church had foreign exchange students from Japan like show up, and like I tried to, you try to communicate, right? I don't know if you've ever. Yeah, it's so hard to interact with somebody when they don't speak English and you don't speak Japanese. So you're like, Yu Yu Hakusho. Yeah, Ryu. They're like, yeah, Hadoken. Oh, cool, yeah, Hadoken. And they'd be like, Eiffel Tower, and you're like, yeah, Eiffel Tower, bro. So we ran out of words,
American
right?
Enough, I guess, yeah.
Right. So we were running out of words, and we're at this like public pool, playing, like having fun, like me and Adam Gold trying to entertain these two Japanese foreign exchange students. So we're jumping off the diving board and we're just yelling out random things like pizza, the stupid shit like that. And like, this is probably like, if you weren't there yet, it would have been like fourth grade, probably fourth or fifth grade.
Well, that sounds about right. Cause I remember like literally in Twainhart when I was in school, they like sometime about fourth or fifth grade, they had Japanese students for some reason. Maybe they just went on a tour around California.
Maybe.
Cause I remember
I'm sure they remember me.
And I remember, those same kind of questions too, where you're like, what is Street Fighter like in Japan? Like a very like retarded question. It's Street Fighter. Just Bison is named Vega. Weird.
That's weird, man.
Or I guess it's the other way. It's like Bison is Vega, and then I almost want to say I think Vega is Bison, which I always think that name doesn't fit him very well. It doesn't seem like. And then trying to think of Balrog is Vega, and then I think Bison is Balrog, which they thought that was too close to Mike Tyson in the U.S.
Right. Well, they had like dope games that we never got, like Fire Emblem.
Yeah, that didn't come out
like
for
that.
a good while, and so on like that. Like so many great games that at that time period in like whatever fifth grade or whatever, that was like when you could get those random translations of like emulation games on like line, and at first you think it's like, oh, it's like legit. You don't realize it's probably some other like 12-year-old has translated this that probably doesn't really know Japanese that well. Because I remember like you'd get games and be like, oh, Final Fantasy IV translated, cool, and you're like, well, boy, they swear a lot in this game. It's like, yeah, that's the Japanese version, and then you believe it. Why would that guy lie?
It's much better.
So yeah, it's okay. So you're jumping off the.
But it's probably not even
yelling obscenities.
Well, it did turn into that. So they started like saying like I don't know, like crazy shit to us, right? Uh, like one of them jumped off and said Pearl Harbor. I mean, I was like, okay, bet, son. So the next time I jumped off and I did a cannonball, I was like, Hiroshima! and then Adam jumped off. He's like, Nagasaki! But we were all laughing. We had a great time. And I just wanted to say, the whole point of that story is, we get to share each other's cultures now. It's fantastic.
No matter, well, realistically, that is kind of true because it's like Japan and the U.S. got like, after that incident and, the dust was settled, you know what I mean? Like, they all got to work as a great team, you know what I mean? Sometimes it's like there has to be a little bit of like chaos and warfare and riffraff to realize that you'll get along really well and, you'll have business together.
100%.
Share technology and all that good stuff. And nowadays we get to watch awesome movies from both sides, and we got great animes and video games. So nobody's complaining.
I have a good buddy who has a theory that because of the atomic bombs being dropped on Japan, that's what created anime.
It's what created a lot of like the start of like, because of course Godzilla and all that stuff spawns from there. And if you don't have Godzilla, you probably wouldn't get all the giant mech stuff and all. It literally all spawns from like those moments.
He believes radiation poisoning caused massive creativity, and the downside was tentacle porn. that's what his like whole theory, like exposition ends in, and then we got hentai.
Yeah.
We did this to ourselves.
And nowadays you get weird things that blow my mind that they even exist. That like I'll be flipping through like the Switch or PlayStation store, and they'll be like hentai shop simulator. And you're like, how does this game escape by?
How'd that make it to the Switch?
Yeah. Well, dude. Well, I felt like when what's his name? When the last dude who was running Nintendo passed away, it felt like whoever the hell took over next time. I'm drawing a blank on his name right now, but he ran Nintendo for like 20 years or whatever. Or he was
right.
The dude who invented Kirby. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
And he helped with Pokemon and all that stuff. But Ettore, I'm trying to blank his name, but whatever.
He's running the show now.
Well, that dude passed away 5-6 years ago or something like that, and whoever I think ran it now just fucking opened the floodgates because, like, there used to be this thing back in the NES days that was called the Nintendo Seal of Approval and all this.
Exactly.
Stuff. That is so gone because, like, anybody and everybody who has their little indie game can slap it up on the Switch, and I feel like it's almost like overwhelmingly like it's like okay, there needs to be a little bit of a filter here, like, it's. If you're going to release it on PC, you can have a place where, all this stuff, but like, let's have a little bit of quality control here and all. But then there's some stuff too. It's like, it's just weird because it's like, it's literally in the title. It's like hentai, like, shop simulator. And it's like, okay. And there's like all these ones, like, they look like these, like, you see them all the time. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, every single time I flip through the new games, there's like another variation of like, like this, like hentai, like, they look like story adventure games or whatever, but like, they're just called that. Like, well, it's obviously can't be. I mean, how much of an adult game can this be, or is this just like they put in the title, making people buy it, and then maybe it's just kind of like somewhat risque, like, oh, there's just some like scandalous ladies here or whatever that want you to talk to them, kind of like those games. I'm not too sure, but it just blows my mind that is on both a Nintendo store and even the Sony store. You know what I mean? It's just like, interesting. Yeah, right. Good for them. I'm not putting anybody down for it. It just blows my mind that it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, oh, yeah, okay.
Well, that's the weird thing about video games today is how saturated the market is, and it upsets me a little bit because that's one of the few reasons why I still play my Switch. Is I know if I buy an RPG and Nintendo, at least at one point, when I buy a Nintendo Switch game and it's an RPG, it's going to be a good fucking game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to get honey dicked on the Sony PlayStation Store, and I'm going to play some indie game that fucking sucks dick,
Well, that's why, what I'll say is, like, this is where the Xbox store actually outweighs the other ones, is they have a review section on there. So you can actually go, nice. If you see a game, you go, that looks kind of interesting, and you can read the reviews, and, of course, you got to kind of filter through a couple of them, because there's always, like, the guy's like, greatest game ever! And then the guy like, this game fucking sucks! Okay, yeah, then thank you. There's the guy in between who actually, but this there's some games where you go, oh, that looks kind of cool, and if it was probably Sony, I would have probably bought it, and then be like, what the fuck is this? But at least there I can kind of go, okay, that doesn't sound that good. Or it's the other way around. We go, oh, that actually sounds pretty fun. Fuck it, $5, I'll take it. Let's give it a go. You know,
Dude. So I just bought Fire Emblem Warriors, Three Houses. That
Dude,
version
I legitimately just bought that too because it popped up on. There was a sale on that that offshoot of Amazon called Woot, and it was like $26. I'm like, fuck yeah, give me that.
Oh, dude, I got it for the same price at GameStop.
Oh, nice.
It was just it was just randomly in there. I had the weirdest interaction with the GameStop employee. Like, I feel like GameStop is like, one day away from just fucking shutting up shop, and you'll never see a GameStop again. Like, I feel like it's like any day.
I'll tell you this. 2 days ago, literally the GameStop in Sonora closed its doors. It's gone. Totally just.
It's gone?
Yep. And it's funny because I went in there because I'm like, well, I got to go use my free $5 now. God forbid like that. And I go in there. I'm like, this is the only place where, if any other business is going out and like, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70% off. GameStop, nothing was. It's the same store. Like, there's nothing on sale at all.
Those bitches.
Maybe the T-shirts were at one point because they were out of those or something like that, but none of the video games.
Right.
I didn't expect that because probably what they'll do is they'll send all the games back to GameStop headquarters and they'll just sell them online because that's what I'm assuming.
Right, that makes sense.
They're going to probably turn into an online store once they kind of because I think they're closing down more and more shops left and right, just like so many other businesses.
Well, it makes so much sense now then because this employee, like, I bought the Warriors game, right? And he's like, you know what type of game this is, right? I was like, yeah, it's a Warriors game. It's Dynasty Warriors.
Is this guy younger than you?
Yeah, much younger. But I was like, yeah, it's a Dynasty Warriors version of Fire Emblem. I know what I'm getting into. He's like, good. He's like, I just want to let you know. He's like, we've had some people get mad. And I was like, oh, were they like Zelda fans? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I could see if, you bought Hyrule Warriors and you're expecting old school Zelda. And you get that, you're going to be a little upset. And he just like looks at me and goes, fuck Zelda. Zelda's gay. And I was like, we're in a crowded GameStop. There's like kids around. Like, I have my two kids with me at the counter. I'm like looking around like, what? What just happened?
This guy's looking to start some fights, really. I like, what I mean? I'm like, sir, do you really believe this? Or are you just trying to like start some shit? Are you trying to start a fucking samurai war? Are you trying to start the new warring states period again?
Dude, he said it with conviction. Just Zelda's gay. I was like, wow.
That might be them fighting words in other places here.
This dude doesn't give a fuck about his job.
No, dude, this guy does. Well, he probably knows it's on the way out and so on. And sometimes I always question the people that they sometimes hire at GameStops anyways. You know what I mean? I think some of them are kind of mentally off anyways.
Yeah. The one at Sonora was so weird. The one who most likely drives a Subaru. You know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, that lady's she's gonna be like on food stamps on the street. I don't know what's gonna happen there. That lady's been there way too long.
I know. She would talk my ear off about like all kinds of different games. But I mean, it was always like games I would never play, like weird indie games, or like she'd be like, "Have you checked this out?" And I'm like, "That's a game I'll never play." No,
yeah.
Thanks.
You could just stop talking right now. Yeah. So, well, that's cool, dude. Well, I wonder if that Fire Emblem one actually has any multiplayer on it, because I know all the Hyrule Warriors.
I don't know.
It's like you can't. Well, you can play multiplayer if you're in the same room, of course, but not online, because that'd be pretty dope if that's the case. But that's funny that we both found it at the same time, because I literally saw it. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll take that for $26. That's a hell of a deal. You know what I mean?
That's what I thought. I think mine was 27.
Yeah, I think that's what it was too. I think it was $26.99 if I'm not mistaken. But well, that was the same way when I found the first Fire Emblem Warrior. I think it was like I saw it on Amazon once. It was like $20. I was like, hell yeah, I'll take that for $20. Yeah,
that one's good.
Yeah, that one's good. Well, they're all the like I fucking love the Hyrule Warriors, and I see they're coming out with a third one actually for that, which I'm stoked.
Awesome.
Because I played the living daylights out of all three of those, or two of those,
dude,
and
explain the controversy with Switch 2.
What do you mean? You mean the fact that, like, are you talking about the tariff thing?
Well, no. People are talking about how, like, basically it's like a bullshit new system.
Well, realistically, I'll say this. It's literally the safest thing that Nintendo's probably done since maybe even the Super Nintendo, if you want to call that kind of safe. Even though that one does have a kind of ballsy thing for the fact that it wasn't backwards compatible at a time period where people didn't understand system upgrades. But because if you think about it, like every system that Nintendo always puts out, they are actually like the most ballsiest company when you really
they always go all out with like a complete redesign.
Yeah, a complete like 'cause you look at the N64 compared to the Super Nintendo. It's like here's this radical controller, which a lot of people don't understand the 64 controller, and which is they always look at like I don't get it, like it's weird, like why does it have 3 handles on it? It's because it's made to be like a couple controllers in one. You can play the games the standard way that we always think about it, with like your hand on the main part and on the right side, or if you're left-handed, you can play it the other way around. Nobody ever thinks about left-handed people. Or the thing that like is very underused that like I always kind of wish is that controller also doubles as a 6-button controller. So like I don't know if Nintendo assumed that there was going to be like Street Fighter and shit on there, but because the only thing you could really use it for is like Mortal Kombat and a couple other games, but it literally was designed that way. Very innovative. The GameCube controller, completely unique design, the way they sort of set that thing up. Of course, the Wiimote, something way radical. Even the Wii, the gamepad, like all these ones are all pretty weird or radical. The Switch is kind of pretty safe all in all. It still has some other bonus features and so on like that.
It's like the final form of the Wii.
Yeah, really, that's what it is. It's just like the Wii just condensed a little bit more. So Switch 2 is really the same.
It's Golden Frieza for the Wii.
Yeah. That's totally what it is. And Switch 2 now at the end of the day, like Nintendo's playing it extremely safe. This is like the first time they're like we're not really changing much. It's just going to be, instead of pretty much a glorified Xbox 360 that's portable, I like to hopefully assume that it's kind of more equivalent to like a PS5/Xbox Series X, give or take. Probably be somewhere maybe a little less or so, but whatever. It's about that much, but in the same exact similar design as the Switch. And then it's going to kind of do that same thing that like I always feel like both Xbox and PlayStation do, where you kind of get the new system, but all your old games pretty much generally still work, no problem whatsoever, or is one generation away. So they're playing it real safe there. The controller actually looks pretty sleek, the new one, where it's just got the standard thing, but it looks like their buttons are a little bit more dialed in and everything like that. So for the most part, it's just really safe. It's just more of a high-end Switch at the end of the day, but I think it's actually quite high end because the price tag's actually kind of high. Because I'll say this is the other ballsy thing. Nintendo mostly always has been kind of, when they do their price increase, it's always kind of very small. Like the NES was $200, the Super Nintendo was $200, the N64 and GameCube were all $200, which is kind of mind blowing with how much inflation went from 1985 to 2001. The Wii was the first one to do a $50 increase, so it was $250, and then I think the Wii U was $300. If I'm not mistaken, that could have been $250, but I think it was $300, and then the Switch I believe was either $300 or $350.
I think it was $350, but then they have like multiple different Switches. Like the Switch Lite's like $299.
Yeah, well, I think it was $300 actually, the initial Switch, because I know there's the OLED,
the Ultra, yeah.
With the super screen and all that stuff, and then there's this, of course, the Switch Lite. But I want to say the core system was $300. Well, this system is $500 almost. It's $450 or $500 for the Mario Kart one, and that's a huge jump. But I almost am kind of glad Nintendo did that, because what that tells me though is that it actually has some power in it. Because I was kind of afraid the system was only going to be $350 or $400 or something like that, and I was going to be like, That kind of is going to tell me like, well, that's like $50 more than a Switch. How much more power can you really pack into that? Because companies don't make their money off the consoles. The console's mostly made to be like borderline. Okay, like maybe we'll make just a little bit, but that's about as close as we get. Or if you're Sega, you kind of fuck that up, and then the system costs you more money than you actually make off of it.
Right.
The Saturn, actually, they lost money on every Saturn sold. They had to make up for it in the games.
Right.
So there's that.
Oh,
well, it didn't help that Sony did the thing where they're like, $299. See ya.
Right.
After Sega's like $399, that's what. Oh shit. But
it sucks because the Dreamcast was so fucking good.
So good and so ahead of its time. Such a radical, thing. But okay, going back to like the Switch though, is like, so that tells me that it's actually probably going to be beefy and.
So it might have like Steam Deck level of power. Like processing power.
I'm going to say it's probably going to be kind of close to that, in a sense, because I think a Steam Deck, like if you get the cheapest version, I think it is $400 for it. And then like the mid-grade.
Something like that.
I think 500 or 600, and then the top tier one's like 750 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, the main Steam Deck you could get is basically PS5 cost.
Yeah,
I believe.
So this thing should probably be maybe even slightly more powerful than than the Steam Deck, because I think Nintendo finally kind of came to their senses, be like, no, let's at least catch this up. I mean, when PS6 comes out and everything, they'll be behind again, but at least it'll be farther up than Switch, because I always looked at Switch as, at the end of the day, I kind of sum it up as it's a glorified Xbox 360 at the end of the day. That's kind of what it is, which is weird to think about, because the Xbox 360 came out in 2006. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's a long time ago in graphic-wise, but...
I play certain games on my Switch. Like, I'm not going to go play Skyrim on the Switch. That'd be fucking stupid.
You get the motion controls.
I don't care.
But yeah, so it's like, well, and that's the thing. It's like, at the end of the day, like, let's be honest, the main reason you buy Nintendo is because Nintendo is going to have its badass games like Fire Emblem, like Pokemon, like Mario and Zelda and all that stuff. But in this one here, it's like, because when they did that Nintendo Direct, they were like dropping off. There's like, there's going to be all kinds of big shit coming out for here. Whether
I know the memes have been vicious. I don't know if you've seen any of those.
No, I haven't seen anything, but I can only imagine and whatnot like that, because they do have some things where, like, Nintendo's like, hey, we got a fucking microphone on there and stuff, and we got voice chat, which. If you first like, well, cool, so did Xbox Original. Right. The one that they have this little camera feature that, like, it seems kind of like, it's like, oh yeah, you can plug a camera into your PlayStation or Xbox or anything like that. But the way that one is, it kind of seems like, well, that seems kind of cool, where, like, it's like, if me and you are playing games online, we got our voice thing, we're talking to each other. That's one thing. It's like a phone call and whatnot. But if you could kind of see your friends actually, like, their facial reactions, kind of like how we do this podcast here, I'm like, that's actually kind of cool, especially playing Mario Party or Mario Kart or whatnot like that. I feel like there could be some kind of neat stuff there. I don't know. I like all Nintendo stuff, so I'm looking forward to it. I put my name down literally like 10 minutes into when, like, the pre-order thing popped up on partial pre-order thing popped up on Nintendo's own website. Of course, there was the tariff thing that threw a fucking wrench in the gears there. But I kid you not, I literally think that 90-day suspension is literally for Nintendo. I do not think that's actually for anybody else but Nintendo. Like, it's one of those ones. That's your theory? I think a samurai literally showed up to the fucking White House. Just like fucking, probably the ghost of fucking Shizumon showed up there and just been like, yo, I got a job request from Nintendo.
Well, I heard a thing where, like, Japan was selling off a bunch of treasury bonds that they had for the U.S. So maybe Japan was like, you will not fuck with the Nintendo.
Well, because literally, it's the weirdest thing is Nintendo.
No, dude.
Nintendo's literally the biggest company in Japan. They're bigger than Sony, which is strange to think about, because you think Sony sells all this other shit, but for some reason Nintendo sells, in a sense, one thing, and they're way bigger.
Right. Well, they're beloved.
Yeah, they're bigger than.
Dude,
Toyota.
I want to go to the new Universal Studios park that they have in Florida. They have like a whole Nintendo land,
and they got the Donkey Kong one there and everything.
Yeah, I just think that sounds so cool.
I went to the one in Los Angeles in Hollywood, and it's cool, don't get me wrong. It's like, the only thing about it is it's called Nintendo Land or Super Nintendo Land, but it's literally just Mario. There's nothing else there. There's no Zelda, no Fire Emblem, no Metroid, no nothing. So it's like, it's neat, but I kind of wonder, like, was this just a ploy for the Universal for Nintendo to get a theme park thing, and for Universal to get the rights to make a movie? Like, that kind of the whole like, it feels like it's kind of like, it's like a business deal type thing, more than like,
it probably is,
but hopefully in the long run they'll add more cool stuff there. That's what I kind of, I mean, they put the Donkey Kong one and the Florida one, so maybe that's
dude, you can make such a badass ride, like make it Metroid, and it's just like a rail shooter, and you have, like, you put your hand into like a blaster and you just go into town.
Because the Mario Kart ride that's at Hollywood, you literally put this little, like, visor thing on, so you got kind of like AR vision. So you're racing in these really slow carts, but you have, like, you can literally, like, throw shells and shit. I can't remember if you shoot a gun or if you just throw it or whatever the heck you do, but you got this AR thing on. Maybe you have a blaster. I can't remember, but, like, so you're shooting.
You like press a button or something.
Yeah, so you're like shooting fucking Koopa cars and so on like that as you go along. You're like racking up points. I don't know what these points are fucking for, but you're racking up points and whatnot. And it's kind of neat. It's novelty and so on. But as I said, like it'd be kind of cool if it was a little bit more. I mean, it's literally going probably like 5 miles per hour. It's like
Right.
one of those kind of rides. You could probably walk faster than it's going.
That's silly.
Yeah.
Well, that's like the little like Mario Kart thing that you could buy, where it's like an RC car,
Oh yeah.
and you could like you have your little screen, so you're driving Mario around, it's like you're playing Mario Kart, but it's your RC car driving around your living room chasing cats and shit.
Yeah.
That thing's slow as fuck. It's so fucking slow. Yeah, but you seem like you're going a little bit faster because you got that POV view.
Yeah. Yeah, it probably has some wind effects and everything like that to make it seem more extreme.
Right.
But
the other thing I wanted to talk to you about was I did finally get to see Warfare.
I wanted to bring up that to you because I didn't know anybody else was going to talk to it about but you. And I know we mentioned that because you mentioned that a couple weeks ago. You're like, oh, yeah, by the way, there's this weird A24, war movie coming out. And it was like, well, that just sounds interesting itself. I don't know if it's going to be. We'll see what it's like and whatnot. And
I should have knew what it was going to be since it's from A24.
Yeah, because A24, they kind of.
I love the Lighthouse.
Well, there's certain movies I like the whatever the fucking wrestling one was, the Iron Claw. Like
Yeah.
I enjoyed that.
That's because you're a wrestling fan.
I like the wrestling, and I like the old wrestling, like 80s wrestling.
And I like Zac Efron's chin, God damn it.
Yeah, and I like his abs. I just, I want one of those 3D movies so I can reach out and touch him.
I want the steroids he's got.
Yeah, whatever he's got, that's what you need in life. But
he's on all the gear.
He definitely is. But that was good. I like the X movie or whatever. That one was fun. The sequels were
X.
That's that horror movie one. It's in like the 70s, and then there's two.
I don't think I watched that one.
The X was super fucking good. Like that was one that I just kind of threw on. It was like on Prime at one point. I was like, oh, that looks kind of interesting and whatnot. And it was a good just kind of twist. Like it had all like the 70s vibes and nostalgia and all that kind of stuff, like almost Texas Chainsaw Massacre like. And then as it kind of goes on, it's just interesting to think like, oh, the killer is actually somebody way different than you think and whatnot in here. And it's like, oh, this is fucking interesting and so on. And just like everything about it, I thought was badass. It's literally one of those ones where like they're just these like 25-year-old people like, we're gonna go shoot this like porno. We're gonna rent out this old barn.
Oh, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, and so that one was really good. And then they had a sequel or a prequel called Pearl. Still interesting. I didn't like it as much as X, but the Pearl was still there. And then there was the third one called Maxine that was the sequel to X that came out in cinemas last year. And still interesting, still good, but just once again, none of them hit me like the way that X did, but I was like, oh, that's fucking good. So those are some of the A24 movies I like. But I hate to sort of say, A24 kind of reminds me of like Blumhouse, where like they almost kind of have this like style, and they all sort of look the same. And even if they try to do a different genre, it almost still has like the same filter over it, if that makes sense.
Well, did they do A24 did The Menu, right?
Maybe. I've never seen that, but I know which movie you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't have a computer. If you have a computer, look it up.
I can do it for you.
I know they did The Lighthouse with William Dafoe and Batman. I can't think of his name. Robert Pattinson.
Oh, Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, The Lighthouse.
I probably should have typed in Menu movie.
Yeah, right.
The first thing that pops up was when the menu was invented. So, yeah.
They did Civil War. I haven't seen that.
So Menu. Oh, I remember. Oh, I never seen it, but wait, is this the one that's got like it's got Anna Taylor-Joy in it and fucking John Leguizamo? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I've never seen that, but that seems kind of interesting. As I said, they have stuff that almost...
Is it A24?
I'm gonna find out. Oh, somewhere in here it's gonna tell me. It says it's Searchlight Pictures actually, so maybe not.
Fuck, I was wrong. Son of a bitch.
But yeah, but like so, well, and A24 just feels like because like they literally had trailers for like 4 other A24 movies when we went and saw Warfare or whatnot. But Yeah, I know. I was one of those ones like, let's see what a war movie's kind of like, and I will say it's artsy fartsy as fuck, and I kind of expected that's probably going to be the case and whatnot. Which I'll say this, that works in some ways. It's like, oh, there's some kind of like cool shots you'll see. Which, okay, that's kind of cool. That's different, so on like that. But then it's like, you know, there's other stuff too where it's like the weird things that they'll focus on and just like really hold on a certain shot for no real reason, but just to be like, hey man, check it out. Look at it. Look at that guy right there. Yeah. Yeah, he's off center.
Right.
Weird, huh?
Yeah. A lot of that weird stylistic choices with sound in like Dead Space.
There's no music in it.
Right. To like try and capture, I guess, like the chaos that's taking place, but I feel like you're missing out on, you know, a gunfight.
Yeah.
On what they're deciding to just like focus the camera on with its super muted sound of just like a dude screaming, but like with almost no noise. Yeah,
exactly. Because they focus on some stuff, once again, artsy stuff, you know. And again, there's no music in this entire thing. Because like the movie starts off, it's just like, you know, they go to Iraq or whatever, and pretty much they hold down this house, and I just love how they bust in and just be like, yo, fucking out of the way, people here, we're using this house for reconnaissance here.
Dude, that's the joke I like.
This brick wall here, fucking tear that shit down.
That's the joke I like telling people when they're like, oh, what'd you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I was like in the army. And they're like, oh, what'd you do in the army? And I was like, I did breaking and enterings with my homies for $45,000 a year. Wait, what?
Yeah, that's pretty much what this movie is. It's literally a breaking and entering. These guys go hang out in this house, and for like the first 45 minutes, like nothing really
bust up people's walls.
Yeah, break down people's walls, put them in the corner, you know, bust a fucking hole in the side of that, like the second story window, so they can put a couple snipers, you know, looking through them, take their fucking mattresses and make a giant, like, it looks like, it almost kind of has that equivalent of like if you're a kid and like, you know, someone's parents are like, here, you can use all these pillows and stuff to make a fucking fort. It's just like, hell yeah, I'm gonna put my fucking Nerf gun up here now and sit here and watch the neighbors, you know. So they're up there hanging out, watching stuff, doing some reconnaissance, checking out on these people and whatnot. And once again, it's like 45 minutes of just like literally just kind of like waiting. There's just like this slow build up or something like that. Like no real action. You know, guys are sweating. You know, you kind of have some interaction between our different fellas.
Dudes are pissing in bottles.
Yeah, dudes are pissing in bottles. Like, well, I feel like it's supposed to, like, it's definitely trying to do that thing, like, we got to capture it all, man. Like, all, like, the feelings and all the different stuff, you know, because it's dedicated to the one dude who gets his legs blown off or whatever, like, at the end, you know. So I feel like it's kind of his movie. Yeah, they just kind of are going through this until somebody fucking chucks a grenade through the window, and then all hell kind of breaks loose, and they're like, oh, shit, what's going on? They spotted us and everything like that. Like, we got to get the fuck out of here. And then they, you know, they pull in, like, the APC vehicles or whatnot, and they're like, okay, load on up. And then, of course, fucking artillery strike, and that's when you start getting this chaos of, like, that sound that you're talking about, and you hear just screaming and, like, weird, like, boom, 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 you know, and they're really trying to make it feel like, oh, man, did you feel that explosion? I bet you'll know it right there. Yeah, that's right. Can't tell what's going on. And so they go back in the building and they're like, by the way, people, we're not leaving yet.
It was the most artsy version of like an IED I've ever seen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, so
when they do start like kicking off and fighting, like I think it's like the other I'm guessing it's a platoon that was split up amongst two locations. Yeah. Because I got a little distracted while I was watching it. But when the full platoon meets up and they have like two guys on top of like I guess a second story like balcony, just having a firefight with their belt-fed machine guns, that part was really cool.
I like that. Yeah. Well, that's like once the action starts to kind of get going and so on, like there is some cool moments in there and so on. And I mean, there's even funny stuff, too, along the way when they're, like, sneaking by and the one guy's, like, air humping with his, like, rifle and everything. And then the other guy's doing a funny dance, just fuck with each other.
Right. Which I found that surprising that they put that in there. And then I was also thinking, I was like, is that what SEALs would do when they would go on, like, infiltrating a dangerous area at night, because we never did that. We fucking did patrols and shit at night. We didn't do that stuff.
Yeah,
I was just in the fucking army, dude. I wasn't a Navy SEAL.
yeah, we didn't do any air humping with our rifles.
No, you would have got your ass chewed out.
I feel like that once again, the dude in the wheelchair at the end who got his legs blown off, I bet you that guy just said like all that stuff. If it reminds me like one of those movies where like, yep, that happened, just put it in there. It feels like one of those movies where that guy kind of just like dictated like the script out and just said, hell yeah, put that in there,
Maybe. I have no idea.
I have no idea, but for some reason I'm just picturing it being one of those ones, like sort of like the only thing I can think of is there's like college movies out there like that where people go like, are you kidding? Did this really? He's like, really fucking happened? I was fucking there in the 80s. Where were you? Okay, like I guess that's going in the script.
Right.
Dude,
so, yeah. It's like I'm not saying this is any of them. It's like Four Leaf from Tropic Thunder.
Yes.
Like, I'm not saying that's the case. I'm not saying that they lied. Just Four Leafs there like, this is how it went down.
Yes,
he started humping in the air, brother.
It's just like one of those things, but yeah. So then it's like, so the first rescue doesn't work out, so then they got to go hunker back in here again. Well, now everybody and their mother knows that like where these guys are at, so they're being held down, shit's blowing up, people are firing machine guns and so on like that. And
the camera's making weird choices of what to focus on.
Yeah, focusing on strange things and so on like that. Getting real close to certain people's faces. A couple guys are bleeding out and so on like that. You got the the fat dude who doesn't really know how to like. He's pretty much like, he's like, well, guess what? Now you're the medic. Well, I don't really know how to do it. It's like, well, fucking learn. And then he's like, give me some fucking morphine. The fat guy's like, oh, okay, I think this is how it goes. And then he stabs himself the wrong direction. And I'm like, okay. Jesus, I guess.
Right.
Which I was actually waiting for that to get really fucked up. I thought that like what was going to happen is that like as that movie went on, that guy was going to get all fucking high and shit from stabbing himself with the morphine and whatnot, and then he's going to be fucking useless. And that never seemed to really happen. Maybe I don't know what happened.
Right.
Maybe enough chili dogs kept him going, but
yeah, morphine's not as bad as that. I mean, you could definitely OD somebody on morphine, but.
Yeah,
like the way they had it, those Tourette's
is when I had the morphine in the hospital. Is like it kicks in really fast, and then like you just kind of feel calm.
Right. Well, you had it probably in like a drip, right?
No, they would come in as like if you needed it, and they would just like shoot in one like I don't know whatever one dose was into like straight into the IV, and then
yeah, it's straight lining it like. What they were doing was IM, intermuscular.
Yeah.
So it's not as like, so it's like not as quick onset.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because
they had Tourette's. They had like morphine Tourette's, like auto injectors.
Yeah, where you just had it, whatever side you're supposed to stab with, red or blue, and obviously, the one
dude did it the wrong way.
He's like, oh, I got me in the finger and stuff like that, and that dude's like fucking bleeding out. He's like, you fucking idiot, get a fucking another one. I got like 6 of them in here, you fucking fat ass. Come on, I'm fucking bleeding out here.
When the Bradleys, the Bushmasters showed up. Oh man, with those cannons, and they're just blowing up the roof. That was so cool.
Yeah, that part.
I wish I got to see Bushmasters just fucking destroy things.
That feels like that's like the best job though, is you just get be in there and just fire fucking cannons off and just blow the shit out of places.
Until you hit an IED with your flat bottom and you're all fucking schwacked.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Then you're all dead.
And the downfall is that everybody's aiming at you.
Right.
That's the thing, is you're literally sitting in a box that everybody's like, blow that thing up. It's the same thing about being in a helicopter. I feel like you're just asking to get shot out of the sky with a fucking rocket launcher.
At least you can move a little bit better with a helicopter.
Yeah, exactly.
Or depending on the type of helicopter. I mean, if you're in a Black Hawk, those go down. Or a Chinook, fuck.
Yeah, the Chinook's not fast enough to kind of get out of there, but
Yeah, helicopter scared me.
Yeah, yeah. It's just you're just literally, these guys are looking forward to pulling out their fucking rocket launcher and shooting a helicopter. You know what I mean? So
I just feel like I got not that I didn't like the movie. I thought it wasn't a bad movie, right?
yeah,
It's definitely not going to go into my rotation of like awesome epic war movies that I will just, love a ton.
All I have to say is I already kind of knew it wasn't even going on my top 10 list of this year. I was like, I don't even need to write this down. I enjoyed it enough, and I think it's interesting. I think it was an interesting watch. I think that's my takeaway.
Right. I got honey dicked by the ads that I kept seeing online where people were like, that's the most visceral war movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely not that.
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, it was pretty brutal. I mean, when the IED first hits off and like old boy gets his legs blown off and there's just legs and a gun laying out on the road, that's pretty hardcore.
Well, dude, those two like Iraqi guys that because they get sent out first, and they even have that look. They literally look at each other like, fuck. Like they have that look like the stupid fucking Americans are gonna send us out first, and they literally get blown to fucking bits. There's like boots fucking left is like it.
Right. It's your country, bro. You go first.
Well, you know the directions. I'm just saying,
Right.
Yeah, so those guys kind of do, and then when it does get brutal, it does get brutal, and some of those guys get fucking torn up by that, and they do some good kind of gore like effects and everything for it, and they drag them back in and whatnot, and a couple guys are bleeding out and so on. And at first they're like, we're not fucking coming to get you. Like, we just saw what happened there. Like, and then like they finally get that radio in going and finally like, okay, we'll send 2 more, whatever, fucking APC things in to go get you. And hopefully it works out this time, And they send the squad.
Send more Bradleys.
Yeah, send more of those Bradleys in, and lo and behold, that second time it kind of works out. I didn't think it was going to work. I was like, I wonder how this is going to go down. It's like, oh, okay, I guess they ran out of fucking bombs to blow up with. They're like, shit, we didn't expect the second time them come back.
Right.
But, yeah, like that, like the ending, once you kind of get to that ending, like, I guess last half an hour, it's kind of interesting there. And they have the shootouts on the roof and everything like that. I kept waiting for for some reason I was waiting for an airstrike because they kept cutting to that drone footage and whatnot like that, but I guess they were just watching,
Right. The ISR is what that was.
Yeah. So, there was that there. Then they get out and that's kind of the movie. That's like, the movie's like an hour and a half. It's real short. It's just like, it's like the quickest war movie you'll ever see. Literally takes place in one building.
Yeah. It was I don't know. I think I was just expecting so much more.
I think that's kind of what it was too, because it's like when you said it's like, oh, you guys like this, I'm like, oh, okay, this sounds interesting. I'm kind of down, And then, as I said, not bad.
I just repeated back what the ads said. Most visceral, action-packed from start to finish. And I was like, oh, hell yeah, let's go.
Well, that's what I see. I'm like, oh, shit, this could be like an hour and a half of pure action. That was what I was expecting, just like a fuck. I just expected almost like just a full-on gunfight throughout wherever the fuck they were in Iraq for like a straight hour and a half. That was what I was kind of assuming. Well,
they were definitely in a nasty spot of Iraq in Ramadi.
Yeah, no, that's no good for anybody there.
Yeah.
The one part I was
no bueno
is once they fucking drive away and everything like that, and then you see all like the dudes like fucking pop their heads out and come looking like for them and whatnot. I'm like, I was waiting like airstrike, and you missed it.
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between America and like Israel. We will just drop a bomb and level an entire block. I would say that's like one of the things that was most interesting about that, because I kept waiting for a precision strike, like maybe like a JDAM or a 500-pound bomb to get dropped on an area to try and get them some sort of relief, maybe a hellfire. One, that'd be hard because they're in a building. You can't call in a danger close strike on a building that's just across the street.
Exactly.
But all they did was just flybys. They just did show force flyovers. And obviously the Iraqis, the insurgents did not give a fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. You just wasted fuel for nothing. That was pretty much all that was.
Right. It's crazy.
You know, I just always think like you know, in the olden days where you just be like, fuck it, just carpet bomb that area.
Yeah, right.
Fucking fly your B-25 over it, fucking open the hatch, and you know, let them have it.
The Vietnam era.
Drop some napalm on them.
Well, that's one of the big differences between like Iraq and Afghanistan. Iraq was more urban, and in Afghanistan, you could be like, they're on that fucking, you know, mountain ridge over there. Yeah, let's go ahead and drop a 500-pound bomb. Just giant explosion.
Yeah, don't worry. There's no civilian casualties, and if there is, fuck it.
Right.
They should have been up there in the mountains anyways.
There was a spot that was called the Pump House, and near like an area where we were at, and we would always take fire from like the pump house. And I think it was like an old, like there was a well there at some point. I don't fucking know. There could have been a well there like at that time, but insurgents would like to use the pump house. And eventually somebody got sick of it. And they're like, send a hellfire rocket on the pump house. And they just blew it to smithereens. They're like, it's fucking done.
That's it.
I can't use that no more, you fucks. Fucking blow that bitch up.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was waiting for that in this movie, and then it never happened. Then it cut the credits. I was like,
It never happened.
Never.
Or like other troops to come out and be like, hey, we're here to help.
Yeah.
Nobody came.
There was that one sort of extra team that I don't know, where we said they're kind of split up almost, maybe.
Yeah, I felt like because they were so small, like the element that was in that house, and they all went out together at night, right? It was like the whole crew.
Yeah,
and then they met back up
at night, and then they hang out there till morning to like, you know, take some reconnaissance, and obviously they're spotted. You know, either that or somebody in the fucking house, you know, sent off a page or something like that. You know what I mean? You never know.
I think they just know you're there. I think it's hard to hide.
Yeah, especially when you go, you know what? That house used to never have a hole in the wall up there on the second floor, and all of a sudden there's a couple holes that weren't there yesterday.
You know, Ahmed, I haven't seen Ahmed outside his home lately.
Yeah, he likes to always sit on the front porch every morning. I wonder what's up. Yeah, something like that kind of went down.
He didn't come over for our daily hashish session.
Yeah. Chuck a grenade in there. So let's just see if he's still alive.
Dude, that was a good fucking throw too.
Yeah,
whoever
exactly.
threw that grenade was a fucking stud.
Yeah, that guy should have been a sports star right there.
100%.
Yeah, because that thing like fucking has precise, like just makes it right through a little fucking hole. You know, blows up, puts a bunch of confusion. You know what I mean?
Iraqis must be able to actually throw shit, because every Afghani I've seen that tries to throw a rock or anything, they fucking suck. You should go look up videos of like Afghanis doing jumping jacks. It's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, this whoever threw this in here, he had like fucking computer AI, like video game, like fucking accuracy.
He was on the Iraqi national baseball team, bro.
Yeah, literally. But yeah, warfare. Interesting. That's where I kind of leave it at. You know,
I would tell people don't watch it. Wait till it's free on streaming somewhere.
Yeah, you don't need to necessarily. It's one of those ones. If you watch it, I don't feel like it's like bad where it's like, oh man, that was a fucking waste of time. But it's not as good as you'd also think too. It's like it's that weird middle of the road kind of thing where
it got a lot of hype.
Yeah,
all the ads I saw for it. Ugh,
yeah,
I'm upset. I'm upset because I told you, like, dude, it's gonna be fucking sick. I keep seeing ads. Action packed, brother.
I mean, that's okay. I had 2 hours to kill anyway, so it was that or go sit in the car. So I was totally fine with, like, hanging out, just seeing what this was all about, you know.
Right.
But as I said, interesting enough. It had some stuff in it, but yeah, as I said, I was kind of expecting it to be like, I'm like, oh, it's gonna be like fucking balls to the wall action and stuff like this. Like, are these guys gonna make it out or anything like that? And like, it was kind of like that, but light. And the action was,
right.
You know, it was there, but not as tense. But
it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad, and it takes a while for it to like get going.
Yeah, no, because it does take. It's like, I mean, it feels like at least like 45 minutes, if not maybe even a little bit longer. But you know what's kind of weird is I've noticed this. If I see something where it's kind of like you get like that sort of lukewarm feeling in something, I don't know why, but that sometimes almost bothers me more than if a movie's just really bad. Because a lot of times if it's just really bad, you can almost find other like enjoyment and pleasures out of it. You know what I mean? But like when it's kind of that one where you're like, oh, I thought it was gonna be really, and it's like it's kind of just middle of the road. Sometimes you kind of get that and like, well,
dude,
okay.
Like what all of young America is having with Minecraft right now.
Oh, of the movie Minecraft. See, I feel like
apparently it's so bad that they're like making it into like the next Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Oh, really? That's interesting. See, because
you haven't seen those videos. You haven't seen the videos of the kids going fucking crazy at Minecraft, getting arrested and shit.
Nothing.
Bro, you need to look those videos up. Like it'll be like Jack Black starts singing or something like that, and all the kids are like, ah, throwing their popcorn all up in the air.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because Minecraft's one of those ones I feel like that's like a borderline, like you could tell like a super generation gap. And I know that thing's been out since like fucking 2008 or whatever. Like it's
actually, the game, yeah.
You know, it's like kind of ridiculous. But I feel like that was just like, you know, just that next generation past us where it's like I don't fuck. I mean, like. Not saying I don't care. Get it, but I don't care. It's like, you know, I guess this is the only way I can go. It's like, I guess that's that generation's Pokemon. That's the only way I can kind of look at it. Because I know Pokemon's probably like, if anybody's 10 years older than us, they kind of look at Pokemon like, how the fuck did you get into that? I mean, like, you just had to be there, man. You know what I mean?
I don't even like the new Pokemon games.
Other than that, well, the last one's the only one that I thought was a little bit off. But the last, like, beyond that one, the last, like, couple, like, the other ones on Switch, I fucking loved. Like, Arceus, I think, was one of my favorite experiences. Did you play fucking Arceus?
I have not.
Dude, that's the
last one I played was the Island one, like Summer and Moon or something like that.
Sun and Moon's the 3DS one. Was that the one you played?
Okay, no. It was whatever one where you're on a fucking island.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about. It's Sword and Shield. Was that the island one?
I don't remember. It's too childish for me. I don't know. I can't do it.
Yeah, there is.
It makes me want to fucking kill myself. What am I doing with my fucking life?
Well, Arceus, I think you'd kind of enjoy because that one kind of gives a more old school Pokemon. You got to get past like the first like 3 hours of fucking like. You know, there's always some fuckhead that has to talk to you. But once you get past that point and so on like that, and the game actually gets rolling, it's like that's the one where you're out there in the fucking wild and stuff. And Pokemon are like, they almost become dangerous again. They actually look like pocket monsters like they're supposed to, you know, from like the 90s, you know, 5 and, you know, our era and so on like that.
Right.
Because like you'll be out there and you'll see like a Rapidash and it'll fucking like turn and look at you and it looks like it wants to fucking just maul you and kill you. And it's like it's kind of cool, you know. And that's actually what the new one coming out this year. It's in that Arceus style. I'm like, that's fucking badass because I love the living daylights out of that Arceus game. I thought it was so cool. I mean, I've still played pretty much every single one of them. I think it's because it sounds weird. I know they are kind of like, they might have a little bit of that childishness to them, but like, I feel like it always takes me back no matter what. Like, I could feel like, yeah, I want to be a 10-year-old going on a fucking epic adventure, you know what I mean? And the only thing that bothers me is this is like it sounds like a small complaint, but it's like, it's something kind of like, you know, back in the day, your rival was fucking Gary, and he was a fucking cunt. That was the whole point of the game. Right. Is that you're like, fuck this guy. You know what? I don't care if he lived across the street from me, but like he is an asshole. He always will be. I'm gonna kick his fucking ass, and that's gonna be it. Where nowadays they try to do the thing where it's like, I'm not your rival, but you know, I'm kind of your best annoying fucking friend. You're like, dude, you're not my fucking friend. Get the fuck away.
And I'm gonna show up randomly, and we're gonna battle, but you know, we're friends.
Yeah, it's like I fucking hate that. Where it's like, no, I don't like you. Get out of here. I don't want to be your friend. No. I hope you die. Like. You know, I think it was that Sword Shield, I want to say they had like a dude named like Trip or whatever. Like, it was like, dude, he was like, no, can I just like slow murder this guy? Like, and you know, just watch him bleed out, you know, like fucking like samurai battle and just like watch him like sit there like, it hurts.
Right. Because it's like, dude, because Gary brought that out of you 100%.
Well, that's what I like about Gary.
He would like show up and he'd be like, I bet you haven't even caught 50 yet. I've caught 80 Pokemon, you fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, like, yeah, he was just smack talking you and everything. Well, and I feel like that's the difference between like Attitude Era, where like, you know, smack talking was a good thing, and then nowadays where it's like, you know, you got to be friends with everybody nowadays, and it's like, no, 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 no,
Dude,
no.
you know what also had made a change with that? Mario Tennis. I always loved the single player campaigns in like Mario Tennis, and like you play like the old version one, like you'd like come up to somebody's like, my serve's the best, and you're just a stupid little kid. I'm gonna fuck you up. You're like,
like the
okay,
Game Boy
bitch.
one.
Okay, bitch.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll show you. I'll show you up with my serve. You know, yeah. But no, I feel like you need a little bit more attitude in that. That's like what you need, just like that. But the Arceus one I thought was cool because it was like ye olden days, and yeah, you were just out there and like fucking catching Pokemon in the wild. Pokeballs were a new concept, you know. Yeah, that one I think is super cool, and that's what that new one's supposed to be, is in that style. So I'm kind of looking forward to that.
That'd be cool. I won't play
it. I'll play it for you. But yeah, well, we talked all kinds of fun stuff. 13 Assassins, totally awesome. You want to see some cool like Edo period, you know, samurai warfare and so on like that. Well, you can check it out. It's on Amazon Prime.
Modern samurai with old school, I guess, like flair to it.
Yeah, like it's a modern movie because whatever, it's 2010. Yeah, 2010.
Yeah,
or whatnot. But it kind of plays like a Akira Kurosawa style, you know, and even just the way it's shot, it's kind of has that neat look where they try to use like total like natural lighting. You know, they're not a bunch of big studio sets or anything like that. Which, don't get me wrong, I actually like that look too. But I think in this one, it's like, oh, it makes you feel like you're there in the time. It's brutal, action packed, and so on. And of course, if you feel like it, you can go check out Warfare. You know, even though warfare is in the title, don't expect tons of warfare. It's you know, like warfare.
Right.
You know, there's a bomb.
Unless pissing in a bottle is warfare to you, and then you will see that.
Yeah, exactly. You know, sometimes it reminds me like one of those artsy movies where it's just going to make people like in Portland and San Francisco be like, "Wow, this is really dirty lifestyle. Like, can you believe that those Iraqis live like that?" You know, I feel like that's like
Portland people wouldn't be thinking that. They'd probably be like, "This is terrible."
Yeah, probably. I would never go see a movie that has the title "War" in it.
Right.
What about if it has the band War? You know, they have those peace songs. Not in my book.
Not in my book.
But so there's that, there, you know, and so on, and then yeah, and fuck it, cool. We can play some Fire Emblem later too. It's all working out, you know. But yeah, till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes,
And Josh,
and we'll see you some other time.